Yo, step into the darkness where shadows lurk, where every creak, moan leaves your mind berserk. In the heart of that night where fear takes flight, horror grip, tiny, so no escaping its might. Haunted halls and with the echo with whispers untold, and chilling silence tales of our old from the deep of abyss where nightmares reside. I wave tale of terror, let your fear collide. Welcome to the realm where nightmares stream, in the land of horror where only the brave survives. I feel the street down your spine, the chill in the air, and the kingdom darkness where we dare to share. Blood moon rise, casting shadows long, and the maze with fear where you don't belong. Eyes glow in the dark, watching every move, and this quest games where nothing left to prove. Monsters under the bed, with ghosts in the mist, in the house of horrors with a soul kiss. Have you ever stayed in a haunted cabin?
Actually, yeah. Me and my friends rented out a place in the woods, and we saw shadows moving around, and we heard footsteps. I was convinced we were not alone.
The night was dark and stormy. I had decided to spend a weekend in my grandparents' old cabin in the woods, hoping to reconnect with nature and escape the stress of the city. I had always loved the cabin as a kid, but I hadn't been there in years. My grandparents had passed away a long time ago, and the cabin had been left abandoned and neglected. I arrived at the cabin in the afternoon, after a long drive and a short hike. The cabin looked old and worn, but still cozy and inviting. I unlocked the door and entered, feeling a wave of nostalgia wash over me. I explored the cabin, finding familiar objects and memories. I saw the fireplace where we used to roast marshmallows, the rocking chair where my grandma used to read me stories, the kitchen where my grandpa used to cook his famous pancakes. I felt a warm and fuzzy feeling in my chest, as if my grandparents were still there with me. I decided to make myself comfortable and spend the night in the cabin. I lit a fire in the fireplace, cooked some dinner, and read a book. I felt relaxed and peaceful, enjoying the silence and solitude. I decided to go to bed early, since I was tired from the hike. I chose the bedroom that used to be my grandparents'. Feeling a bit guilty for invading their privacy, but also curious to see how it looked, I opened the door and saw a simple but cozy room, with a large bed, a dresser, a closet, and a window. I noticed a framed photo on the nightstand, showing my grandparents smiling and holding hands. They looked so happy and in love. I felt a pang of sadness, wishing they were still alive. I put the photo back and got into bed, pulling the covers over me. I closed my eyes and tried to fall asleep, but I couldn't. I felt restless and uneasy, as if something was wrong. I tossed and turned, trying to find a comfortable position, but I couldn't. I felt a strange presence in the room, as if someone was watching me. I opened my eyes and looked around, but I saw nothing. I thought it was just my imagination playing tricks on me, but then I heard my name being whispered in my ear. I froze, terrified. The whisper grew louder, more insistent. It sounded like a woman's voice, but not my grandma's. It sounded angry and menacing, as if it hated me. "Who are you?" I whispered, trying to sound brave, but failing. "You don't belong here," the voice hissed. "This is my cabin, my husband, my life. You stole everything from me. You ruined everything. You have to pay." I felt a chill run down my spine as I realized who the voice could belong to. It was my grandpa's first wife, the one who had died in a car accident before he met my grandma. The one who had been buried in the woods near the cabin. The one who had never left. I had only heard stories about her, but I was almost sure that it was her. I felt a surge of panic as I realized I was in danger. I tried to get out of bed, but I couldn't. Suddenly, the room went ice cold, and I felt a heavy weight on my chest. I couldn't breathe. I tried to scream, but my voice was stuck in my throat. I felt a pair of cold, bony hands wrap around my neck, squeezing hard. I felt the life draining out of me, as I saw a pair of hateful, glowing eyes staring into mine. Just as suddenly, everything stopped. The presence vanished, and I could breathe again. I gasped for air, coughing and choking. I heard the commanding, robust voice of an elderly man, urgently telling me, "Run." I felt a rush of adrenaline as I jumped out of bed and ran out of the room. I grabbed my keys and my phone and ran out of the cabin. I didn't bother to lock the door or to pack my things. I just wanted to get away from that place as fast as I could. I ran to my car, which was parked a few meters away from the cabin. I got in and started the engine, hoping it would work. It did, and I drove away, not looking back. I drove until I reached the nearest town, where I checked into a motel. I called my parents and told them what had happened, begging them to believe me. They did, and they told me to stay calm and wait for them. They said they would come and get me the next day. I spent the night in the motel, feeling shaken and traumatized. I couldn't sleep or stop thinking about what had happened. I wondered why the ghost of my grandpa's first wife had attacked me and what she wanted. I wondered if she had ever attacked my grandparents or anyone else who had stayed in the cabin. I wondered if she was still there, waiting for me to come back. I wondered if I would ever be able to forget that night. I'll never forget that night. I never went back to that cabin, but I want to. To this day, I can't explain what happened, but I know it was something paranormal, something related to my grandparents. I want to know the history behind it, and I will find the truth.
Veronica, have you ever read about The Last Ride? It's about a couple who take a late-night ride road trip and end up in a terrifying situation.
Yes. I couldn't believe how quickly things escalated, and the twist at the end is insane.
My name is Bob. I'm a part-time cab driver in a small town. I used to work as cab driver from evening to late night for extra income. I've seen some weird things in my time, but nothing prepared me for what happened last night. It was around midnight, and I was driving on a deserted road, looking for a fare. I saw a man standing by the side of the road, waving his hand. He looked normal enough, so I pulled over and opened the door. "Where to?" I asked. He got in and said, "Just drive. I'll tell you when to stop." I shrugged and started the meter. He was wearing a dark coat and a hat, and I couldn't see his face very well. He didn't say anything else, and I didn't feel like making small talk. We drove for about half an hour, passing through the woods and fields. I noticed that he kept looking out the window as if he was searching for something. He seemed nervous and restless. Finally, he said, "Stop here." I looked around and saw that we were in the middle of nowhere. There was nothing but trees and darkness. I didn't see any houses or signs of life. "Are you sure?" I asked. "Yes, this is the place." I checked the meter and said, $25. He reached into his coat and pulled out a wad of bills. He handed me one and said, "Keep the change." I took the money and thanked him. He got out of the car and slammed the door. I watched him walk into the woods, disappearing into the shadows. I just started to drive back when I heard a scream. It was a high-pitched, blood-curdling scream, full of pain and terror. It came from the direction where the man had gone. I felt a chill run down my spine. I wondered what was going on and if I should call the police. But before I could do anything, I heard another scream. This time, it was closer, and it sounded like the man. Glancing into the side view mirror, I caught sight of him. I saw him running towards the car, his face twisted in horror. He was covered in blood, and he had something in his hand. It looked like a knife. I was scared out of my mind. I didn't know what to do. I wanted to help him, but I also wanted to get away from him. He looked crazy and dangerous. He kept running and screaming, begging me to stop. I was about to stop to help him when I saw something behind him. Something big and dark. Something that moved fast and silent. Something scary and was not natural. I slammed my foot on the accelerator, the primal instinct to survive overruling everything else. I was scared to death and wanted to get away from that thing as soon as possible. The thing, whatever nightmare it was, closed the distance with unnatural swiftness. It grabbed him by the shoulders and dragged him back into the woods. He dropped the knife and screamed one last time before he was gone. I was frozen in shock. I couldn't believe what I had just seen. I didn't know what it was, but I knew I had to get out of there. I didn't stop until I reached the town. I parked at the gas station and got out of the car. I was shaking and sweating. I felt sick and dizzy. I looked at the money he had given me. It was a $100 bill. I realized that he had paid me to drive him to his death. He paid me for his last ride. He had known what was waiting for him in the woods. He had wanted to end his life. But why? What was his story? What was his secret? What was that thing in the woods? I don't know, and I don't want to know. I don't want to think about it anymore. I don't want to drive at night anymore. I don't want to be a cab driver anymore.
Then there's the Cave of Shadows. We discover the cave that reveals the worst fears.
That one is intense. The darkness seems to come alive, and I love how it plays with their minds.
Jake and Tyler were bored. They had spent the whole summer in the small coastal town of Shadow Bay, where they had rented a cabin for the holidays. There was nothing to do there except swim at the beach, play video games, or watch TV. They had seen all the movies, played all the games, and swum in all the spots. They wanted some adventure, something exciting and dangerous. That's why they decided to explore the cave. The cave was located at the far end of the beach, hidden behind a cluster of rocks. It was dark and mysterious, and no one ever went there. The locals said it was haunted, cursed by an ancient evil that lurked in the shadows. They said that anyone who entered the cave would never come out alive. Jake and Tyler didn't believe in such stories. They thought they were just superstitions, meant to scare away curious kids like them. They wanted to see for themselves what was inside the cave and prove that there was nothing to be afraid of. They packed their backpacks with flashlights, snacks, water bottles, and a camera. They waited until their parents were asleep, then snuck out of the cabin and headed to the beach. It was a moonless night, and the only light came from the stars and their flashlights. They reached the rocks and climbed over them until they found the entrance to the cave. "Are you ready?" Jake asked Tyler. "Ready as I'll ever be," Tyler replied. They turned on their flashlights and stepped into the cave. The air was cold and damp, and they could hear the sound of dripping water echoing in the darkness. They walked deeper into the cave, following a narrow tunnel that twisted and turned. They saw strange things along the way. Bones, skulls, candles, pentagrams, symbols carved on the walls. They realized that someone had been using the cave for some kind of ritual or ceremony. They wondered who it was and what they were doing. They decided to take some pictures with their camera, hoping to find some clues or evidence later. They snapped photos of everything they saw, not knowing that they were awakening something sinister with every flash. They reached a large chamber at the end of the tunnel. It was filled with more bones, skulls, candles, pentagrams, and symbols. In the center of the chamber, there was a stone altar covered with blood stains. On top of the altar, there was a book bound in human skin. Jake and Tyler felt a chill run down their spines as they looked at the book. It seemed to radiate an evil aura that made them uneasy. "What do you think that is?" Jake asked Tyler. "I don't know," Tyler said, "but I have a bad feeling about it." "Me too," Jake said. "Maybe we should get out of here." "Good idea," Tyler said. They turned around to leave but stopped in their tracks when they saw something blocking their way. It was a hooded figure wearing a black robe and holding a knife. It had no face, only a dark void where its eyes should be. It spoke in a raspy voice that sounded like nails on a chalkboard. "Who are you?" it asked. Jake and Tyler were terrified. They tried to run past it, but it moved faster than them and grabbed them by their necks. It lifted them off the ground and brought them closer to its faceless head. "We are the ones who disturbed your sleep," Jake managed to say. "Yes," it said. "You are." It smiled wickedly, revealing a mouth full of sharp teeth. It dragged them to the altar and threw them on top of it. It opened the book and began to chant in an ancient language that sounded like gibberish to Jake and Tyler. They felt a surge of pain as they saw symbols glowing on their skin. They realized that they were being marked by the book, branded by its dark power. They screamed in agony as they felt their life force being drained by the book. They looked at each other with horror as they realized that they were going to die. They wished they had never entered the cave. They wished they had listened to the locals. They wished they had stayed home. But it was too late. The book consumed their souls and closed itself with a loud thud. The hooded figure laughed maniacally as it watched them turn into dust. It picked up the book and walked out of the chamber. It left behind nothing but bones, skulls, pentagrams, symbols, and 2 flashlights lying on the ground.